Texas and South Carolina are running it back, and it already feels like March. Yep, South Carolina, Texas. Who's the real number 2 team in the country? We shall find out very soon in less than, well, I don't even know what time the game is, but in 24 hours, we will find out who's the real deal number 2. Now, obviously, with the loss to LSU, Texas dropped down to number 4.
Yep.
So I'm sure if they were able to come up with a win against South Carolina, they will get back to number 2. But as it stands today, South Carolina number 2 is taking on Texas number 4 in a Thanksgiving rematch. They played them, what was that? Thanksgiving 2025 in Las Vegas.
Vegas. We were there.
We were in Vegas. We weren't at the game.
We were in Vegas.
We were watching the game from the comfort of our hotel room, with the cocktails flowing and the food being eaten. This was a very good game. Do you remember the score of the last game? South Carolina lost by 2 either way.
Yeah, not I don't remember the score, so
It could be 2-4, and the point is they lost by 2. But the score was 64-66 with that last minute jumper by Rory Harmon. Really quickly, we have to talk about the past before we talk about the future. Let's talk about the last time these two teams met. Dad, oh, you know what? Sorry. This is Club Hoops podcast, a father-daughter podcast about women's basketball. I'm Natalie Franklin.
And I am Gregory Franklin.
I'm just excited. Sorry. I'm just excited. This is the most anticipated game. I'm just been looking forward to this rematch. I'm ready to just dive in, sink my teeth
right
in.
Just totally just went right to it. We're here to do a preview of that this game is coming on in less than 24 hours, and you just went straight into it.
No intros, no salutations, no pleasantries. But now that we've gotten that out of the way, Dad, what did you see in the last game? Anything you'd like to bring to our attention?
Well, these tournament games are weird to me. First of all, particularly, you're playing during the Thanksgiving holiday. I know that there's, a need, particularly between these two coaches, to win, every time they face one another, right? Don wants to win, Vic wants to win, all that good stuff. What I saw in that game on Thanksgiving were two teams really just trying to get through the game. It just so happened that Texas got through it and won. I didn't see I didn't see a lot from either team. I saw some good basketball, of course. That's what you want to see. But the intensity that I think, in comparison to what I believe we're going to see tomorrow, I believe it will be very different. But really, for the most part, I saw two teams just trying to get through it.
Right.
And I don't think, maybe it meant a lot to both coaches, but I don't think that tournament play meant a lot to either coach. I think they just wanted to get through it, get to the turkey, get to the dressing, get to the day. And so anyway, that's what it felt like. But that's how, these kind of, I don't want to call them exhibition tournaments, but that's really what I think this one was.
It was like an NIL tournament. They got money. I think it meant a lot to Texas because, again, I feel like Texas gets, specifically this year, has been getting overlooked and not really named with the UCLAs, the UConn, the South Carolinas, even LSU, right? I just think they were really proud of themselves because they dog walked UCLA that weekend.
That's
and
right.
then, or that week. During that Thanksgiving week. And then they had a big win over South Carolina that pushed them to number 2 in the country. So I think the wins were big for them. I think, to your point, had they lost, I don't think they would have hit the panic button and redid their whole program. But I think it was nice that they were so dominant in that tournament, and obviously not dominant with South Carolina, but they won these games I'm sure no one thought they could win. With that being said, to your point of how this game went, it was still early in the season, right? We're still in November. It's a holiday week. Both teams had to travel. The neutral site, but I mean, and bless their heart, there wasn't a lot of people at the game because, again, it's a holiday and you're in Vegas. it was an awkward game, and I agree. It seems like both teams were like just trying to get through it. With that being said, and I agree, the game that we will see tomorrow will be very intense because for one, Texas is coming off of that horrific game against
Yep.
LSU, and South Carolina is trying to maintain dominance. You know, they're undefeated in SEC play. They're actually their only loss came at the hands of Texas, so they've got a little bit of vendetta. Shout out to Coach Schaefer. They've got a bit of a vendetta against Texas. For real, for real.
Yeah.
So I think we'll see a high intensity. I'm hoping a high competitive game tomorrow. Going back to the game in Thanksgiving, the thing I didn't like about that game, and you know me, if you've been watching us a couple times now, how I am about the lack of 3-point shooting. That was the difference for both teams. I mean, on the Texas side, they were 1 for 6, and South Carolina's 2 for 7. Now, I do think since the teams have met, they've upped their 3-point attempts, but the in a game like this where we gather will be very close, you gotta make some threes.
Yeah,
Like, some threes have to be made. And I
yeah.
get it, that's really not Texas's identity. It's probably more so South Carolina, you know, with, Tessa Johnson is more of a 3-point shooter. I know Joyce is trying to get in a 3 or 2 every now and then, but Texas, that's really not their identity. I think we saw Madison Booker in the last game make 2 crucial 3-pointers, but that's really not her game. So I think if I were the coach of Texas, I would tell them, look, going into South Carolina, we got to make some threes. We got to make a we it just it's going to be the difference in this game. One
Yeah.
of the different.
Well, there are, I have game keys, right? Keys to the game that I have
Give
sort
me
of.
your keys, please.
So for Texas, it's definitely controlled tempo, limit turnovers, and perimeter efficiency, and then defensive rebounding. I
Yes.
think those are the same keys to beating LSU.
Mhm.
It didn't happen for them, and then Vic pointed out, hey, I didn't get him prepared. I have a feeling Vic is going to be all over these keys, and he's going to have them prepared.
Right.
Secondly, and more importantly, for South Carolina, their keys is dominate the paint, win the rebounding battle, protect the basketball, and then bench production. They
Right.
have a deep bench, so
Yes, they do.
they're going to be able to do that. This is why this matchup is pivotal, particularly right now where we are in the season, because it is almost the same for Texas. It is almost the same preparation, the same performance goals that they needed to have had for LSU. So now, Vic, you get another opportunity to do these things, these exact same things that you pointed out as keys to beating LSU. So I
Right.
think that's great. As for South Carolina, Dawn Staley is playing a consistent game in terms of how she needs to play from game to game to game to game to game. And I think that's what makes them strong. They never deviate from the strategy of controlling the paint, not turning the ball over. I mean, those are fundamental, right? But Dawn never deviates from that. That's what's going to make this game close. That's what's going to make this game exciting to watch. Uh, and it's going to make it a little physical, particularly in the second half. So
Yeah.
I just think that tournament that was played in Vegas, I think it was I don't know, Players Era Championship matchup or something like that. That tournament, you can't go by what occurred in that tournament as to
Exactly.
what we're going to see tomorrow.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, yeah, both teams will probably look at it and said, "Hey, here's what we did last time," but they've played so much basketball since then. There's been a lot more growth. You're in the groove of the season. The intensity now, this is SEC play, this is conference play, so the intensity is upped a couple ticks. I liked what you said about rebounding because I do agree. Whoever wins the glass, if you will have a better chance of winning. Last time they met, South Carolina was out rebounded by about 7. I mean, it's not terrible, but not great either. I will say too, what was interesting the last time they met up, Ocott fouled out, and I'm sure that was a big blow to South Carolina because what is she, 6'6"?
Yep.
Almost 6'7". So that's something I'm sure Dawn has addressed since then. Like, hey, you've got to stay in games like this. You got to play in control, not foul. Definitely not foul out in games like this.
Right.
And I think
Right.
since then she's done a great job. Like, it doesn't seem like they have a fouling problem over there at South Carolina. Let's talk about guard play, specifically when it comes to the point guards. This is a very both teams have probably the best point guards in the country. You have Raven Johnson at South Carolina and Rory Harmon at Texas. What was interesting about the last time they met up is both of them did not score a bunch of points, right? I think of course, my stats are all over the place. I think they each only had about 7 or 6, but Rory Harmon had 9 assists. And she ended up being the MVP of this tournament because she dropped like 20 something points on UCLA. Like she had a great Thanksgiving week. Um, but yeah, she had 6 points in 40 minutes, and Raven had 7 points in 35 minutes. But I feel like this game will come down to which point guard can keep the pace and
Mhm.
which point guard can keep the team poised.
Yeah,
And you're gonna have to play defense on each other, and it clearly they can lock each other up because 6 and 7,
yeah,
they both were doing a good job.
yeah. The thing that South Carolina's guard play is more important, I think, than Texas's guard play. And I say that because Raven Johnson is the game flow. How
Yeah,
she's flowing is how the game will flow.
yeah,
And as we saw with Texas, Vic Schaefer has no problem sitting down his preeminent point guard, uh,
not a one.
Roy Harmon. So if things aren't going right for Vic, he's shown that he will sit her down. I don't think I think it's going to be hard if Don sees poor guard play out of out of Raven,
Raven,
sit her down. I
yeah,
think this is going to be difficult. Their offense, the way their offense moves is dependent upon how Raven controls tempo and the flow of the game.
yeah.
So I think the guard play on the South Carolina side is more important. I think if Texas's guard play isn't quite what Vic wants it to be, the coach wants it to be, he'll sit Rory down and he'll go to, hey, look, we're just going to get the ball down court, get in a half court set, and move it. So yeah, I think the guard play is critical, particularly for South Carolina, and it's critical for Texas. But Vic has shown that if it's not right, I will just eliminate that part of the game.
I like the point you made about Raven basically making everything go, and she really controls the pace and the tempo of her team. Because if you watch the games, those non-Raven minutes are rough.
They are.
When Raven down,
Yeah.
when she's taking a breather, oh, it's like get some water and get back in here. And you mentioned Coach Schaefer benched Roy Harmon. He talked about that with Corey Mose in an interview he did about not playing Rory Harmon and if he regretted it in the fourth quarter. And Vic shared, I'm reading from Twitter, Vic shared that he believes Rory will go down as the greatest point guard in school history, Texas that is. But in that moment, he was just trying to win the game. He said, quote, I thought that group that was playing in the fourth quarter, we scored 26 points. We scored 11, 14, and 14 in 3 quarters before that. There was nothing in my mind that could justify making any substitution with any of those players. So again, never personal, just business with Coach Schaefer. And I think, like he said, he was just trying to win the game. At that point, he's like, well, this group has got me 26 points. The last group could barely break 15. So I'm just going with this group. But to your point, if that happens again, it's clear that people will be benched.
And it's a great message to send, and that is, if you're not performing, I'll sit you down. I don't care how big the moment is, how big the game is. What's important to me is that we show well and we try to win.
Yeah.
And this is what I think we need. This is the coach speaking. This is what I think we need to do to try to win. So if I have to sit you down, Rory, I'll sit you down. Same thing
Yeah.
with Madison Booker, I think as well. If he has to sit Maddie down, he'll sit her down. But when you start playing the elite part of your schedule, UConn, South Carolina, then you may want to kind of revisit that cautiously, or
Right.
have that feeling cautiously. So anyway,
And when we talk about Madison, she too has to be better this game. She has to play in control. She cannot get in foul trouble like she did with LSU. Just like how important Raven Johnson is to South Carolina, Madison Booker might be just as, maybe even more important to Texas. She has to stay in this game. She cannot get in foul trouble so early that she misses the whole second quarter or has to sit out. You gotta stay in this game. Last time these teams met, South Carolina had 4 players in double digits, which was great. I think what Texas has to account for, just came out that Alicia Turnbuys will be playing tomorrow against Texas. And if you don't know, that is the 6'7" Frenchman,
Yeah.
French woman, the 6'7" transfer who just got here from France. She was playing pro ball. She's pretty good from what I've seen. We'll see how she does against Texas. We'll see what kind of minutes she gets too, since this
Yeah.
is her first game.
Yeah.
But that is just adding to the toolbox of Don Staley. And now, obviously, I'm thinking Old Acre's going to have that assignment, both on offense and defense. And because 6'7", you like to spread the floor. They might have to take Old Acre out of the key a bit and bring her out, maybe free throw line extended, something like that. But that is different from Thanksgiving. That's a
Yeah.
huge
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah. Well, I will say this. Nothing personal against the French, but when they get over here and start playing basketball in these leagues, they find a different game. You know,
Yeah,
you, you,
it's
you
more physical.
definitely you may have been running amok at the pro level in France. I don't, and particularly you're playing in the SEC and you're playing one of the top four teams in the SEC. This is not going to be playing in Paris, France. I guarantee they're going to test her. She will be tested physically. She'll be tested mentally. She'll probably be called some names, pushed around. Some things are
Baguette.
Yep, things are gonna happen to test her. Okay, so great that Don is putting her in against a top four team. Um, we'll see how she does. We'll see how she does. But Texas is not going to let her just run up and down the floor. That's not going to happen.
I feel like that was Victor Wembanyama shade. Is that what you were alluding to?
Victor Wembanyama, Tony Parker when he got here, Rudy Gobert. Rudy.
Rudy Gobert, yes.
Yeah, all these French players come over and they came over from France and thinking, okay, these NBA players we're going to run amok, and no, it just doesn't happen that way.
It's
I
an
mean,
adjustment. Let's put it that way. It's definitely an adjustment for international players.
yeah,
And to their credit, they have to know how to play two styles. They have to know how to play American style because the refereeing sometimes over here is just ugh. But then they have to know how to play FIBA, which is a little more physical, lets things fly a little more, but the competition level might not be as high as it is in America. So to her credit, yeah, she's going to have to learn how to adjust. And that's why I think Don will probably take her slowly. But to your point, Texas won't be taking it easy on her
they will
at
not.
all.
They will not. She's gonna see some things, okay? But I think all in all, good that Don is getting her in, against heavy competition, because you don't want to put her in, against a team that may not be as, that's not even ranked or whatever. And then she gets away and she thinks, oh, there's nothing to this game over
Yeah,
here in the
yeah,
States. And then she
yeah.
runs up against Texas later, or runs up against the UConn or LSU, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and she realizes, oh, wow, this is very different. It's
You
not.
want her to know what she's getting herself into right away.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Don, like you said, Don would probably have some minute thing going on where just give her a little bit at a time. But I can tell you, she will be tested. She will be tested.
Right. And I wanted to highlight too Tanai Latson, the Florida State transfer, the 2025 NCAA scoring leader. Again, she should be acclimated now to the South Carolina program, and I think she played well. Don't get me wrong, in November and Thanksgiving, but I think she's even more prepared now, and I think we'll
Yeah,
see a big game from her as well. Like you said, strong guard play,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And South Carolina has great, obviously, the 6'7", but again with Okot 6'6", and then you have Joyce Edwards. So Texas will have their hands full. They have to play again in a very hostile environment
yeah,
that is
yeah,
South Carolina. Those loyal, great, amazing fans out there.
yeah.
So sorry, Vic. The schedule is what it is. However, I think Vic Schaefer's comments about having a tough schedule alludes to the fact that if they lose, it's because of the schedule.
It's the schedule.
It's the
Yeah, it's the
schedule.
schedule. Yeah, I'm sure
It's
he's.
okay.
I'm sure he's regretting, or he's regretting saying that, or at least feels a little weird by saying it. Because it's not really the schedule. Everyone has tough schedules. you should have stuck with the storyline of, hey, I didn't have him prepared. It's not the schedule, it's not necessarily the players, it's me. And that really feels better, I think, to their fans, and definitely feels better, to folks outside looking in, that, yeah, okay, so you're taking the hit, that's fine, but don't blame the schedule. It's not the
Yeah.
schedule.
Yeah, and like we talked about, when players or coaches lose, they say some crazy stuff. I'm like, remember Kim Mulkey lost to South Carolina, and she was like, "I don't think I've ever coached against a team that has 10 McDonald's All Americans on the roster." That already is like, girl, hush. I mean, it's just it's the entertainment part of sports entertainment,
It
right?
is. It
It's
is.
very
It is.
blue
It is.
chip. If you
It is.
haven't seen that movie, watch it. It's
It is.
very blue
Yeah.
chip.
Yeah. It is.
You mentioned the schedule. I wanted to bring up, speaking of tough schedule, South Carolina plays Texas tomorrow. On the 22nd, they play Oklahoma, and on the 25th, they play Vanderbilt. This is just SEC play. Like,
Yeah.
this is what it is. Everyone's gonna have a little bit of a rough patch, or
Yeah. Yeah.
competition.
No,
And like
absolutely.
I said at the time, they were the number 2 team, but even the number 4 team, no one wants to hear anybody in the top 5 complain about schedules.
Yeah.
If you're in the top 5, you're an elite program. Schedule schmedule,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're in the SEC. You're in a very tough conference. Like,
Yeah.
you're in a very, like, the hardest one, the best one, whatever, and it is what it is.
It is.
No
It is.
shade to anybody else,
And
but
and the thing is, just because you're facing, top five teams, remember Vanderbilt, Kentucky, Oklahoma, those teams can beat you too.
even
Like, it is SEC. These teams at any given moment could come out and crush you.
even if we go out of the SEC, Louisville gave South Carolina the kind of a rough time. So, I mean, you go to Michigan giving UConn hell. So, again, Coach Schaefer, we love you to death, but no, don't do that again. Don't do that again.
Please, please don't do that again.
Please don't do that tomorrow if you
Yeah.
lose. Just
Yeah.
say, "You know what? We've still got some work to do."
We
And
have
again,
good
these
work.
games are still data collecting games. We're in
Yeah.
January. They're still trying to figure out things before they get to March. Now, I do think this game will have a Final Four feel.
It
But
will.
again, these games are still collecting data. Anything else you'd like to say in regards to these two teams
Yeah,
before we?
I would say expect a very physical and tactical contest.
Okay.
Um, and I say that tactical being that, you're gonna have the coaches are gonna be making in-game adjustments, you know, because these are two very well coached, experienced programs. These are two very experienced coaches, in terms of competing at high levels and competing with teams that are they're very, very talented, right? By the way, so I would say expect Texas to control its turnovers because it didn't against LSU. Expect South Carolina to control in the paint and tempo. And if we see that, then we're going to see a very, very good game, and we're going to see it come down to potentially single digits in the end to determine the winner. So yeah,
Right.
I would add that, and I would say, get your TV set and do whatever you need to do and get the channel right. I think it's on ESPN too. In fact, I'm sure it is. Yeah, shout out to ESPN too, and be prepared to watch a very good game.
Right, and it comes on 4 PM Pacific time, 6 PM Central. Do those conversions wherever you are. I'm not good at math. But yes, we will be talking about the game after the game. So make sure you make sure you subscribe, and hit that little bell so you know exactly when that new episode drops. Leave a comment, Texas or South Carolina. Who you got in this one? Which is a great question for you, and you could pose the same to me. Daddy, who do you have, South Carolina or Texas?
I'm going to go with South Carolina because the when it close games, I generally give them to the home team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I like that. Home cooking.
yeah, well, that and the home crowd, you get that extra boost from
Yep.
your home crowd, and the referees tend to somehow, some way favor the home team. A little, not a lot, but you generally see the home team come out a little bit ahead. So I'm gonna give, not saying that Texas, won't be there close in the end, or they'll get just tranched, but I'm gonna give the nod to the home team.
Yeah, and I agree with Coach Schaefer. This schedule sucks. I go South Carolina too. Uh, I'm just kidding, but I am gonna go South Carolina. I'm afraid to because every time I go with a team, they just forget how to play basketball the very next day. So I'm gonna go with South Carolina, but I'm gonna agree with you. I don't think this game. I think this game will be close, a bit of back and forth in a highly competitive game. But yes, I am going with South Carolina as well. So come back to see if we'll be eating crow or if we will be saying we told you so and this is why. Either way, we will talk to you later. Thank you for watching. Again, like, subscribe, share, comment. Who do you got, South Carolina or Texas? All right, guys, talk to you later.